on, guys? Happy January the 23rd. And the Ohio State Buckeyes, they got a good feeling as they have brought home the national championship back to Columbus, Ohio. This storyline of Ryan Day turning this team around, who probably was the best team for the majority of the year. Oregon right there with them. Oregon, we've talked about it, got the low end of the stick, having to play Ohio State in the quarterfinals. Not ideal, right? But, when you look at this Ohio State team, let's not take anything away from them. This is a team that spent 20, 30 million on their roster. This is the expectation. It is the expectation to get to a national championship and not only get there, but win. Ryan Day has yet to find a way to be able to knock down that barrier year after year after year. It's been disappointment in Columbus. It's should we fire Ryan Day? He can't beat Michigan. God, if we win the national championship, who cares because we didn't beat Michigan? Look, there's going to be some Ohio State fans that are exactly aligned like that, where they won the national championship and maybe that rubs some salt in your wound a little bit. You're a little happier about it now, but you're still pissed because he hasn't beat Michigan. I don't think a lot of people do care, though, because in the history books, yeah, there always will be that Michigan game, but you know what? People don't judge, the end of season losses, right? Post-Thanksgiving. No, you matter if you win the national championship or not. History remembers winners, and the Ohio State Buckeyes are national champion winners. And look, what I told you is exactly what happened, and what was going to happen took place. I said, if Notre Dame wants to play man-to-man coverage, that's a bold strategy, Cotton, because they got a guy in Jeremiah Smith, the best freshman in the country. This guy is going to be a top 5 pick, not even top 5, who will be top 3, and he will be number 1. He probably will be in Heisman contention in his, maybe even next year, or definitely in his junior year when it is all said and done. But they went man-to-man. And that was certainly a questionable decision on Notre Dame's part. And look, I know Al Golding and the defensive coordinator who just now took the Bengals job had a lot of confidence in his defense that they were going to be able to shut down Ohio State. Well, they are an absolute monster. They got stars in Jeremiah Smith. They went man-to-man. He had a touchdown. He was nowhere touched. He was averaging 17, almost 18 yards per catch on Monday night. Tough to go man-to-man against a guy of that talent, right? And then the running game, the two-headed monster. We talked about it in the pregame show. Junkins, the Ole Miss transfer. This guy's a stud. He's a stud, man. And, he was good at Ole Miss, and they paid a lot to get him at Ohio State, and it definitely paid off. Ran for over 100 yards, ran for 2 touchdowns, even had a receiving touchdown, had the hat trick. Look, they wanted to interview Will Howard post-game because I know he's the leader of that offense, but if you're going to really interview anyone for MVP, it's Junkins. Notre Dame had absolutely no response on how to stop him. He was having a field day. And Travion Henderson also, I thought, played really good football too. That 1-2 punch in Columbus is going to play on Sundays for a long time in the NFL, and now it's Ryan Day's opportunity to reload, because that's what good programs do. You don't want to look back in history and say, what if? What if we beat Michigan? Would we have been that 5 seed, right? Would we have had an easier pathway? They don't have to look back and say, what if? Because they did what was in front of them. They did the task at hand, and they brought a national championship back to Columbus. And that's the standard. That is the standard. Because I'm a hand up. I said Ryan Day should have been fired. Let's not sugarcoat it. I was one that said it should have been happening too. Because if you can't beat Michigan, who's 7-5, it's going to be another year of disappointment in Columbus. Hey, he shouldn't be there. He proved us all wrong, and he shut us up all. He shut us up. He did. So shout out Ryan Day. Shout out Ohio State. Look, even these players, when you look at Ohio State, it's like Kentucky. It's like Duke in basketball. There's a higher standard playing at this university. It's a blue blood. The expectations are a hell of a lot higher than, if you're going to go play at, let's say, Missouri, right? Arkansas. They want good results there. But if you're going to go out and get a 14-2 season at Missouri or Arkansas, that coach is going to be getting free drinks around the city. Ryan Day had a great season, got the number 8 overall seed, hosted a college football playoff game, and yet they wanted him out of town, including me. Because when we look at the new college football playoff system, it is absolutely wild. Because when we look at Ohio State versus Notre Dame, of course, it was the 2 best teams that played good football at the right time. Maybe they're not the most talented teams. I do think Ohio State was, but maybe Notre Dame isn't the most talented team. But Marcus Freeman has them well coached and had them playing good football at the right time, and they got a favorite end of the draw. That's just how it is, right? When I look at Ohio State, though, and Notre Dame in this new 12-team playoff system, okay? You had Notre Dame, which, look, I'm a repeating record once again, I'm going to say it, that lost to Northern Illinois in the national championship. That would never happen in years past, okay? But why am I going to bring up that point on Notre Dame? Because I bring it up on Ohio State as well. Ohio State finished 4th in the Big Ten. 4th. Oregon was 1st, Penn State was 2nd, Indiana was 3rd, and then there was Ohio State. That's just the facts. That the 4th team in the regular season Big Ten went up against the Notre Dame team who lost to Northern Illinois in the national championship? That's where we are. That is the world of college football right now. Where, look, it's a little different in March Madness. The field is 68. A lot of things can go your way. That and that. I get that. But this is just a new thing that we're going to have to adjust to in the college football landscape of things. And this is just a thing that, look, we are not disputing Ohio State being the national champ because they were the best team, right? They did have that blemish to Michigan, okay? And they lost to Oregon. Nobody's going to really give them credit for that or discredit them. That's a tough game in Eugene. Oregon got the tough end of the stick of having to play Ohio State in the second round. Otherwise, Oregon's in that national championship more likely than not, okay? But here's what sucks. And it's not the 12-team playoff. It's the state of college football, okay? We don't have any classics. We don't. Because that is now 7 straight national championships decided by multiple possessions. You would have to go all the way back to 2017, the Alabama-Georgia National Championship in Atlanta, when Tua Tagovailoa came in for Jalen Hurts. Yes, that was freshman Tua Tagovailoa, and hooked up with Devontae Smith down the sidelines for the win in overtime against Georgia. One of the greatest college football games ever. That was 2017. Because in 2018, Clemson beat Alabama 44-16, blowout. The following year, they had a revenge game in 2018 where Bama had the LSU actually had the last laugh. I believe that was 2019, actually. Yeah, so 2019, that was that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson team, Patrick Queen, probably the greatest football team in the history of football, definitely in the debate to be there. The team went 15-0. That was with Coach Orgeron. They beat Clemson 42-25. Another national championship game that was a waste. Follow it up in 2020 when Bama beat Ohio State 52-24, when Bama went unbeaten and went 13-0. You go to 2021, where you had Georgia finally break a barrier, win their first national championship with Kirby Smart as they took down Will Anderson, Nick Saban team, 33-18. Another blowout, okay? And then the one that we all remember, okay, was in just an absolute beatdown and a half in 2023 when Georgia beat TCU 65-7. TCU probably shouldn't have been there. And if we had a 12-teamer, they probably wouldn't have survived. But the Max Duggan TCU Horned Frogs were outmatched and outnumbered. That was bad. But then you go to last year, okay, in Michigan 34, Washington 13. And now this year, I don't know about you, but I personally think when you look at it, the national championship should not have been on January the 20th. Like, no. Just my opinion. You can't put that the day after the NFL divisional. Because one, I think it got lost in the news. I don't think there was really any hype for this national championship. And then go and look at it, and Ohio State wins 34-23. And for the majority of it, that box score is not going to tell you it. It was a one-show sided game. Ohio State kicked Notre Dame's ass. Now, Notre Dame had that opening drive with Riley Leonard getting hit 9 times, 9 QB rushes, punched it in for 6 to start, had like an 8-9 minute drive. It's like, oh, okay, here come the Fighting Irish. But that's not sustainable. You can't have Riley Leonard continue to take hits and hits and hits. And once Ohio State adjusted to that, they responded with that Jeremiah Smith touchdown. The rest is history. It was men against boys. But once again, that's 7 straight national championship that has been a multiple possession game. We need college football to come back to greatness. You know, we need national championships to be exciting to what they used to be, where you could get really hyped for it. I can't tell you the last time. Maybe that 2021 Georgia-Alabama game going into it had some hype, but I'll tell you what, Georgia-TCU didn't have any hype. The Michigan-Washington game, a little bit, but I think we all kind of knew Michigan was going to handle business there. And in this game alone, there was just no hype. So what does college football have to do to fix it? I'm not so sure, but I will tell you this. You can't have the national championship this late in the season. It feels like college football got dragged out way too far this year. I understand they expanded the playoffs, but you can't have your number one seed Oregon go almost a month without a football game. We've talked about how flawed the system is, right? With the 12-teamer, we talked about Oregon's draw, how that just cannot happen in years to come. The reseeding factor certainly is something that could potentially be in play. I don't think you should have your top 4 seeds be Power 4 winners. I think it should be the 4 best teams in the country to make this format better towards the national championship and whatnot, right? Because nothing against Notre Dame nor Ohio State. Like I said, Ohio State certainly is arguably the best team in football. Yes, they won it all. But on paper, that's a team that probably in the preseason, you wouldn't have been surprised to win the national championship. Just because they're an 8 seed, okay? Let's not take that away from them. But what I'm saying is to not have a top 4 seed in the opportunity to even get into the semifinals is crazy to me. Because you had Penn State, the 6, Notre Dame, the 7, and then you had Ohio State, who was the 8, and Texas was the 5. We didn't have a top 4 seed even win. So I definitely think you have to fix that if you're the college football playoff committee. You have to put your 4 best teams, because those weren't the best 4 teams in the country. Oregon, yes, they just played a juggernaut of a national champion. That's their only loss of the year. Kind of unfortunate if you're Oregon. The 2 seed Georgia. Look, Carson Beck had that UCL sprain, was out for that game. That's just unfortunate. If he plays, maybe we have a different story. Maybe Notre Dame doesn't even end up in the national championship. That's fine. But the 3 and the 4, Boise playing Penn State and being a double-digit underdog, we got to fix that. Arizona State playing Texas, we got to fix that. Just my opinion. You got to have the 4 best teams. So, and we didn't have that. With that being said, though, this national championship comes to an end. I told you what was going to happen. I said, look, I don't think Notre Dame should go man-to-man coverage. I think Notre Dame's just got more guys than Ohio State's got more guys than Notre Dame. I was right. As you saw, Ohio State was having a field day with the Irish. And look, Notre Dame should not be upset with himself. This is a great job by Marcus Freeman to get them to this point, especially, I know, guys, last time I'm going to mention this team, but after that Northern Illinois loss, right? We never would have thought in a million years the Notre Dame Fighting Irish would end up to where they were at with an opportunity to win the national championship and be in the national championship after what happened in week 2 of the college football season. But that is what this 12-teamer is. It has given opportunities to more teams and made every weekend, I would say, in somewhat diminish, right? Meaning you have a little more room to leeway. You have a little more leeway than what you would have had in past. But you also have more games that are kind of playoff games. So I understand both sides if you are for the 12-teamer or if you're not for the 12-teamer. I get that. But it's a flawed system, and it's got to be fixed. Nonetheless, Ryan Day is the biggest winner of this week, as he is going to be a very, very popular guy for years to come in Columbus, Ohio. Now, he won the national championship. Now all he's got to do is get the monkey of Michigan off his back. If he can be able to do that, he'll go down as an all-time great. Hell of a 180 from Mr. Day in a 1-month span period where he couldn't even go out in public in Columbus, was wanting to get fired by everybody in that fan base, to now bringing home a national championship and putting the Ohio State Buckeyes back at the top of the pinnacle in the college football world. An absolute great playoff run for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And it'll be interesting to see in this upcoming offseason where the committee goes, how they deal with the playoff system, and what goes on from here on out. But the Ohio State Buckeyes are your 2025 college football national champions. Looking to repeat next year. We'll see what they're able to do. We already know the freshman sensation will be coming back for Columbus for Ohio State. Guy's going to be so much fun to watch. Him and Ryan Williams. College football's in good hands, ladies and gentlemen. But it went by in a blink of an eye. It's over. And it's crazy to say it's over, but it's over. And it's absolutely incredible to even think that. But it flew by, man. It flew by. Now, let's shift gears to the NFL. Look, another thing that is flying by is the NFL playoffs and the NFL season. You know, with one thing coming to an end, it means another thing's about to end, and that is the NFL. We talked about the divisional last week. Now we look in the factoring of the AFC and NFC championship this week. Look, when you look at these two games, I think we have one game that we probably thought would happen. And that is the game we're going to save for last, and that is the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the first game here, 3 o'clock on Sunday between Washington and Philadelphia, I don't think anybody thought this. And this is a Washington Commanders team, when you go into Week 18, that was fighting for their life on to not be the 7th seed, to be the last seed in the NFC playoffs. Now, things went their way. As you know, they got the 6th, handled business on the road against Tampa, and then handled business and put a beat down, to be honest, to the Detroit Lions, and probably ended the Detroit Lions Super Bowl little run window that they had going on. We'll get to Ben Johnson to Chicago in a second. But look, when you look at Washington, it's the Jayden Daniels sensation. And look, the line's 6.5 Philadelphia. Philadelphia's got the best odds to win the Super Bowl. So they're pretty heavy favorites against Washington. 6.5 should be a lot closer than what people think, though, because that is Jayden Daniels. And the best way I can describe Jayden Daniels is he reminds me of a video game character. He does. He reminds me of a video game character. Because I think when you look on paper, the Philadelphia Eagles have a hell of a lot better team than what the Washington Commanders have. They probably have a better coaching staff than what the Washington Commanders also have. But you know what they don't have? They don't have the game changer at quarterback. Jayden Daniels is a game changer. Now look, the best offensive player on the field Sunday is going to be Saquon Barkley on the Philadelphia Eagles side. But don't count out Jayden Daniels and don't count out the Washington Commanders, because we wanted to count them out against Tampa and we wanted to count them out against Detroit. And they just continue to come out and light everybody up. Now, it is interesting that the over-under is only 47.5, because every game we watch Washington, they go score and then they give up points. It's a shootout. If they are going to beat this Philadelphia Eagles team, they have to win in a shootout. They do. That's just their way of winning. Because if Philadelphia wants to control the clock, which I'm sure they will, run the football with Barkley, win the time of possession battle, wear you down up front, then it's going to go the Philadelphia Eagles way. Because the Washington Commanders defense is not spectacular by any means. That front 7 of Washington is going to have to contain Saquon. Now, that's easier said than done, but that's what you're going to have to do if you're going to win this game. You need Jalen Hurts to beat you. Because if Jalen Hurts beats you, you can live with that. Because Jalen Hurts has not been 100% in the playoffs. I don't know if he's banged up or whatnot, but I don't think Jalen Hurts has looked that good in either one of those games so far in their 2 wins, because it's been the Saquon Barkley show. I would almost, if I was the Washington, D.C., I would basically, I'd want to send the house. I would want a lot of pressure looks, keep Jalen Hurts on his toes, but definitely blitz him. Right? Make him make plays. Definitely keep a quarterback spy, QB containment with the defensive edge rushers as well at times, because you've got to make sure that you can stop Saquon Barkley in between the tackles and not let him get outside and burst one for 75 yards. But if you are the Commanders, you're going to want to make Jalen Hurts beat you, because that is a good recipe for success if you're Washington. You made Jared Goff try to be the hero. They couldn't get Gibbs going. Jared Goff tried to make spectacular plays, make something that wasn't, and he threw multiple interceptions, and Washington had a field day with Jared Goff. And once you start to slow down their offense, and your offense on the Washington side with Jayden Daniels is clicking, that's a hard team to beat. But my concern with Washington is, one, Detroit's a really physical football team. Every year this year, the opponents that the Detroit Lions lost to in Week 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they dropped a game in Week 3. Week 18 to the Minnesota Vikings, or when the Vikings lost to them, right? They end up going next week and losing. Almost every week after you play the Detroit Lions, teams suffered losses. That's because of their physical brand of football and they wear and tear on you. Is that going to play an effect on this Saturday with Washington's fatigue? I don't know. I would love to pick Washington to win, But I do believe this is going to be a Philadelphia Eagles time to get redemption and get back to the Super Bowl where they were 2 years ago, but came up just short. Now, on the other hand, the Buffalo and Kansas City game, this has got absolute classic written all over it. We've had the Kadarius Toney, where he lined up just a little bit offsides, and that was a big viral sensation and talking point in the NFL world. We have just great back and forth games between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Look, this is a team in Kansas City who they've just been going through the season this year, rolling through. Have they looked like the best team in football? They have not. But it doesn't matter. They just put what's out in front of them and they win. They win games. And that's the greatness of their culture, and that's just what Andy Reid does. And the Kansas City Chiefs against Buffalo will have the upper hand here at 2.5-point favorites against Buffalo. It's a tough, tall task for Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl, to have to go through that really good Ravens team and then have to go the road to Arrowhead and play the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a tough task, man, just to get yourself to a Super Bowl. Will they be able to do it? I think it comes down to whoever has the ball last. I think when you have two good quarterbacks like we have in this game, with Josh Allen, with Patrick Mahomes, you're always going to get an exciting finish, right? You're always going to get an exciting finish. And Josh Allen has a lot of story to be written on his career, but a chapter that he would love to write next is winning that AFC championship and punching a ticket to the Super Bowl. Will he be able to on the road in Kansas City? I don't know. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is the best version of Josh Allen we've seen throughout his career. If he holds on to the football, I think Buffalo's got a shot to win this game. But I think the biggest X factor in this game is the best defensive coordinator in football, and that's Steve Spagnuolo. I think he is going to draw up a lot of designs to make Josh Allen as uncomfortable as possible, to make his life as tough as possible, and that is going to be the upper hand, I believe personally, for the Kansas City Chiefs to end up getting a win here in their first meeting of the season against one another. It is going to be a spectacular game between the two great organizations, between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, which would lead us with a Philadelphia Eagles Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl, which we had 2 years ago, where Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs had the last laugh. I think it's going to be a really good championship weekend. Washington, Philly, Buffalo, Kansas City. You can't script it any better than this, ladies and gentlemen. I am excited for this one. I think it's going to be phenomenal. Now, speaking of football, look, we got some coaching carousel going on, and I think the biggest one we have to talk about is, are the Chicago Bears back? You know, it's a statement that I've not been able to say for a very long time, because it's a joke of an organization with that family that runs it. They're cheap, but I think they're tired of losing. The McCaskey family are tired of losing. And to open up their checkbooks and to give out, I believe it is a $14 million contract to Ben Johnson to become their head coach, shows me that they're serious about winning. And I'm really impressed with the McCaskey family, because they've been notoriously cheap. They don't hire good coaches. They just run through the motions. They're just happy to have a football team. To win a Super Bowl, you got to have a game-changing head coach. You do. And the way that you see it nowadays is it's usually a young, offensive-minded coach, and Ben Johnson would fit both those boxes. He was the number one hot commodity on the market in the offseason so far. Everybody wanted Ben Johnson. Everybody thought he was going to go to Vegas, but he's going to go to Chicago and link up with Caleb Williams. And I think that's going to unlock a lot of potential for Caleb, and it's going to unlock a lot of excitement in the Chicago area. That is a great head coach hiring in Chicago. Expect, if they do their draft picks well, you know, with Ryan Poles, the GM, they got a lot of holes to fit. Do they take Ashton Genty? I don't know, but it's certainly a possibility, just to give, you know, Ben Johnson another toy to play with. I love it. I think that's a great hire. I think it's an actually phenomenal hire for Chicago, where they will be back in the playoffs maybe soon. You know, that division just got tougher. You know, Matt LaFleur is a great head coach. Dan Campbell's a great head coach. And, Kevin O'Connell just signed an extension with Minnesota. He's a great head coach. You won't find a division in the NFL with 4 better head coaches than that one right there. Really spectacular job by the McCaskey family to get this one done and to get Chicago hopefully back in playoff contention soon, because that city is desperately needing the Chicago Bears to be good. You know, the Cubs aren't great. The White Sox are the biggest laughingstock in Major League Baseball. The Chicago Blackhawks are horrific. The Chicago Bulls aren't going to be a playoff team. They're bad. They need something to spark a fire under them, and maybe it's the Ben Johnson hiring in Chicago. But that's a really good one nonetheless for the Chicago Bears. And yeah, that's our football update, ladies and gentlemen. But when we look at some college hoops to end the show, look, just another great weekend of college hoops. Ohio State goes on the road as an 11.5-point dog to number 11 Purdue and gets a win. What a weekend to be a Buckeye, right? Win the national championship Monday. Your basketball team's probably not going to make the NCAA tournament, but they need to turn a switch really fast. And they did, going on the road to beat Purdue. That's a huge win for Diebler and the Ohio State Buckeyes, as they did what they needed to do and go in to a really tough place to play in Purdue and get a win there. Huge opportunity there for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Other than that, look, we've got a lot of teams on byes this week. A lot of top 25 teams did lose, though, on Tuesday night. You had Mississippi State drop to Tennessee once again. Mississippi State, it's not easy to win on the road. I get that. But a little disappointing. You know, I mean, they've played a tough schedule nonetheless, but you got to find a way to steal one on the road. You got to find a way to steal one on the road if you are Mississippi State. This team's too talented to not play up to their level of expectation. They're ninth in the SEC. When you look at what they've done on the road this year, they lost at Auburn. They've now lost at Tennessee. They did get that win at Vanderbilt, and that's starting to look a little bit better. But you got to find a way, if you want to finish in the upper half of the SEC, to get a win against one of the better teams in the SEC. But a lot of teams on byes this weekend alone. Look, I think college basketball, all eyes are going to start turning onto college basketball, right? And next week, we are going to do our show that I love to do. It's right when we have that off week of football, the Pro Bowl weekend. Nobody really cares about the Pro Bowl. We do our college basketball checkup right before we enter February, because March is right around the corner. And that's what we're going to do here shortly soon to get everybody caught up, because I know a lot of people don't love basketball like I do, right? Or at least college basketball. So we will get you guys caught up next week. So next Thursday's show will be our annual college basketball catch-up game or show, and I love to do that show. And as you guys know, it's my favorite time of the year. I love March. It's got a soft spot in my heart. I don't think there's anything like March Madness or Champ Week. I think it is unbelievably special. I really do. It's hard to find a better 2-week span than Champ Week and then the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's special, man. So I will get you guys caught up. Look, I'm going to watch college hoops right now. It's a great time. I love you guys, and I will see you guys on Monday to talk about who's going off to the Super Bowl. Love you guys. Peace out.